Big wheels rolling, moving on. Big wheels rolling, got to keep them going. Big wheels rolling, moving on. White line is the lifeline to a nation, and men like Dixon Ronnie make it move.
But I do know the original beings here were reptilian.
Okay, as Jason says, they were called Terrans. It's in his book, so he's got all this stuff that he got from them.
Yeah.
And the more I read about it, I say, my God, he has the matrices in there. He's got the matrix. He's got well, the whole phenomenon itself. How can they be there or not be there? It's just a frequency thing. Some can self-generate the frequency to manifest, and there's others that need technology. The original ones that were here versus the reptilians. There's many races of reptilians.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And a number have come here. A number of extraterrestrials come here that are benign or are
not so benign.
Side.
Yeah, but
there's but then there's a not so benign.
Yeah.
So you don't want to mess with that. I don't know if that's where the edge is or...
Why the fuck not? Why shouldn't we mess with it, you know? Because, you know, that's just one level of existence. It's one level of reality. And because we're seeing it come from kind of a three-dimensional point of view, we can't quite see past the illusion of separateness, us and them. We can't quite see that we're really right here working together right now, and we're all, no matter the appearance here in our life, working on the same project and moving in the same direction.
Wow.
And that includes every level of life, from what they call spiritual down through these multi-dimensional universes where all these other beings live, into this existence, which is the center of all. But it's very grounded because it's Mother Earth, you know. And right now she feels separate from her sun. The sun which exists in the sky in our perception. But in reality, the mother and son are not separate. They're unified. So in other words, there is no lightness and darkness. There's no density. There's just experience in it. You know, and different levels of it. And we choose our levels. We choose our levels where
well, I'm getting it. I understand what you're saying. I know.
Yeah.
Well, you could go on, but
yeah,
there's only so much I can handle. You know, I'm digesting about as much as I can handle.
Yeah, I think most folks that way. That's why the atomic bomb had to sit around for a while, because people just weren't ready for it, and I wasn't pushing it either.
But right, is it having a fluorescence now? Is it starting to sell or something?
Yeah, it's moving sure a lot better than it was. It's going to be a long ways before it gets to be a million sellers. I don't know that it will ever quite achieve so. I'd be happy if I just sold a few thousand of them. That'd be awesome. Because that'd give me enough of a reputation that I could sell some movie rights to a very creative producer of some sort or another. I don't want regular Hollywood unless they would just really be free and open about what they'd allow us to express in such a movie. And by that time I'll have that next book, The Wheelman, going, you know. And because that's what I really is the Wheelman. Yeah, nobody goes anywhere without they talk to me first. Because I've been there, done that, you know. For me, you know, a lot of my experience now is kind of like driving backwards through life because I've already done it, and here I find myself doing it again, and it's like, didn't I pay these dues about 13 years ago? Do I have to do this again? God bless America. Why is that, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And the spirits just smile. They know that whatever the recalcitrant answer is, it's inside of me somewhere, and they're going to make me wait until I just finally realize it, you know. They'll encourage it out of me, but they won't let me pry it out of them.
Yeah, they just get so many laughs. That's the only good reason I think they
laugh.
Be here, because they get so many good chuckles. It's not really, it's kind of in the gray area. It's not really the best.
I think our space cousins, the so-called good guys, were kind of taken back when I called them a bunch of wussies. But the motherfuckers are. I mean, shit. just look at how they act, man, you know. Oh, we're so afraid of human emotion. You guys are so out there. You live in chaos and tragedy and, you know, But the reality of it is they're jealous because they can't feel it like we do, man. They're jealous, you know. I mean, for them to...
What they've done by this, like this indigo child, Jason.
Yeah.
They have activated that common part, and he's more them than he is human.
Yeah.
Because they're so highly evolved, he identifies with that.
Well, yeah.
That
See,
knowledge.
Let's go back to that original story there. You know, that one where we were talking about how the original beings here on Earth were reptilians.
You know, reptilians, right.
Yeah, okay, what happened to that? You know, why was that not, I mean, so anyway, long story.
165 million years ago,
long.
There was a war in the atmosphere by two different reptilians.
Well, hang on a minute, let me get back before we go to the war.
Okay.
Long story short, you know, the reptilians were here. They...
In the Earth.
And what I saw when I went back and revisited this moment, I see us as these kind of enlightened beings, angels, angelic kind of beings, that we're some part of that creation that began the Earth and put the reptiles in it. And we've been gone somewhere partying, you know, we're party people. And we've been gone somewhere, and, you know, of course it takes a while when you're traveling through hyperspace. So it's probably been a few centuries, you know, since we've been back. We come back and take a look, and my God, we're horrified about what's going on there. These beings just could not handle density. It warped their hearts to the point where cruelty became kind of just a passing thing, you know. I mean, oh my God.
Oh my God, yeah.
You think what we live in here is harsh? It's really soft.
That rings true.
It really is soft compared to what was then. And so there's a big council held amongst all the spirits and the beings that do things, you know, with creation.
Right.
And
but can I throw one out?
In that confab, it was decided that the reptilians would be replaced with much smaller versions of themselves. That life would be wiped out. And be replaced with much smaller versions of themselves that could not express in this way any longer, but were more of an animal, instinctual being. And then we agreed, as these God beings, we agreed to take the human form and become as we are now eventually. But to take that human form and then learn to live with that, and then bring into that every aspect of the reptilian experience that they couldn't handle, and get them through it. So in other words, we're co-creators of this reality, and they live inside of us. We see ourselves right now as invaded and occupied, kind of. But in the truth, as I'm going through the experience with those energies inside of myself, and then what I see in beings around me, you know, more and more beginning to understand and see that we really haven't been invaded, that our energies were altered, and that what seems like an invader is really just an energy inside of ourselves that's slightly warped in its perspectives. Polarity has come into being, and that's one end and that's the other, you know?
Yes.
So, but as you realize that this is yourself, this is like these two fingers here, they're on the same hand, they are the same person. Even though they're two different fingers, they even look different. I mean, you know. Right. Surprised one's not black and one's not gray, you know.
Every finger does look
But anyway, it's like, yeah. So as you realize that, you begin to coalesce and get just the realization of it. You begin automatically to coalesce and bring those energies back to a central point inside of yourself. It's kind of getting the two snakes inside to mate. And that's when consciousness becomes into being in its fullness inside of the human, because The only thing we've allowed to restrict our heart has been the reptile energy. And we did that by agreement to help reform their presence, help them through the experience by taking it on in ourselves. Because, we all somehow felt separate from each other.
Wow, that's extraordinary.
Yeah, that's the reality that we live in.
I'm a long way from seeing it that way, but I'm actually seeing a whole different side through.
That's why I couldn't let you distract me from that story, because I knew you weren't getting it, but I had to get through it so you could at least hear it anyway.
That's as big as the stories I've ever heard.
Oh, it's good. I've lived it. I've lived it, man. It's amazing. When this stuff starts to unravel in you, and you find yourself actually becoming like a spirit being, what so-called. Because there ain't no other term to describe it. Who knows? I just call it. But when you start to do that,
I like what I am right now. I like this physical body, but I also like the eternal being, and
it's a reality because you live it. Because
it's marvelous.
You work it. You are a part of it, and it's a part of you, and it's not something separate from yourself any longer. Never really was, but we perceived it that way. And
that was the programming
this is what helped. Oh my God, are we so programmed? Oh fuck! Oh my God, I've been realizing the divisions, even about countries, let alone states. But these artificial lines that we divide ourselves with, we call political boundaries. People have fought over them, and blood has been shed, so that somebody can have a boundary here instead of over there. Stuff like that. All this insanity, man. And so that, even Canada, which is essentially pretty much as the U.S., only a hell of a lot colder and a whole lot more liberal, at least back in the day, anyway. But anyway, it's got its whole separate culture. Even got its own version of the language, shit like that. And Quebec, inside of Canada, there's almost a war over that. Because they speak French, and they ain't gonna speak no stupid Queen's English. It's amazing how that goes, brother. But, shit.
Well, that language of higher consciousness, that's in the Hindu, or the Hindi tongue. It went from Burma to India, but before it got to Burma, it came from Atlantis. Atlantis, from the looks of it, is like a serpent-based, high advanced technology with a interbreeding human bloodline right at that level, and those were the high priests that brought in this high technology and misused it.
And nearly blew themselves out of existence along with everything else. That was a pretty horrible time in humanity's history,
Oh, it's horrible to think.
But what it did when they did nuke themselves and everybody else they could get their hands on, it essentially wiped out that breeding program. There were leftovers, And
so the Elohim came back again and created man again.
Well, I wouldn't call it that.
Well, this boy, his knowledge.
There were remnants that came out of Atlantis.
There were remnants.
And there were some, both the light and the dark, came from there. There were survivors.
Yucatan, Maya.
I don't know.
And they went to Burma.
I don't know. People that have it all figured out are cross-wired.
Well, there's not.
That's one side of it.
I had a book that had all these tablets. There's pictures of these tablets. So there was this first tongue, and it's 80,000 years old.
Yeah, but it's subject to various interpretations, and we're 80,000 years later trying to understand the language written then, and the languages are tremendously. Babbled from one generation to the next. They changed like crazy.
This guy who I read was able to get to the high priest, who was one of the 3 people in the world who knew how to interpret these, and he based his book on this clear. It wasn't outside; it was an insider that could say this is what they mean. So he wrote 3 books on the subject of Mu, the original motherland.
Yeah.
But that was before the mountains were pushed up.
Well, there was mountains.
How were the gas belts pushed up?
There were mountains. There were mountains in Lemuria, but it wasn't exactly a physical existence as we know it now. This was another step down. Lemuria was
Intensification.
Intensification. Lemuria was probably 50, as we perceive it from here, about 50% of what we are now. So, because we went through these dispensations, we call it, and we came into the physical rather slowly, really, even though it seemed like rapid. But, the density was the last stage. And even the Atlanteans had a little less density than we do now. We've been changed even since then. Oh, I'm sorry, telephone. I don't know why that happens, man. I don't know. What's Saturday? Yeah, Saturday, and it's snowing outside. There must be some indebted person that thinks that I owe him money, It can't be. It's Saturday, guys. Leave me alone, Hi, this is your local Communist Party. Please leave a message and we'll get right back to you. Well, someday.
I gotta go.
You ready for what?
Bus ticket back to get my driver's license and all this stuff off this farm.
Yeah.
Turn it into some do re mi.
Do re mi fa so do re mi. Yeah. We're working on the coyote rescue plan for the house now here too. Live in Crestos. And then they just sent me a tax bill for an extra. Well, it's a little over $2,000 total. Good grief. I don't know where they expect a person to get that kind of hen scratch my. I'm trying to talk those hens into laying golden eggs, but so far they're.
It's a different group of people. The money is so important.
Yeah.
And I've decided just to be to not have any of it. Just, I missed the mark. I stalled out here, but.
Well, there's just been so darn many changes in my life in the past year, I quit trucking. I quit, my old lady. I lived in a bus, for months and months, and then it's only by happenstance that I wound up back in this little palace.
This is like a boomerang.
I gave it all away. I didn't want it. It was hers. I didn't want it. Shoot.
It's like a boomerang.
I would have felt like a thief to try to take anything out of it, even though I put plenty into it. I just wanted her to have it.
Special effects would be like you standing on a boomerang and spinning around through space and dropping back here. It'd be just enchanting, the story. A few special effects, shorten the tail.
Well, there's bound to be a lot of money made on the tail of the Coyote clan, but we won't be revealing it all until the time's just right. You know what I mean? So the money grubbers, by that time, won't be so seditious and unruly. They'll be in a more calm and considerate place. And actually have some human feeling for one another instead of the vampire shit going on.
Is it that
The
bad?
smile in your face. Well, it used to be there. I've met a lot of good people in the industry, but when I was in it, from the small time way, a little independent film company, God, there was this structure and this system, and it was you gotta. If you did something nice for anybody, they thought you were kissing ass and trying to move up the ladder, And they'd say something smart about it, and I'd look at them like...
You forget it's a marketplace.
And then them same people turn around and, backstab you because they think you're getting more power than they do, and they're getting pissed off, It's like, oh, shit. Or they make you deals.
Well, the film can be used for
and they never do what they say they will. Take your money and run is pretty much the rule in that game,
Can't you do non-commercial films that don't need to...
Oh, I'm saying this is how the business was. That's why I dropped out of it finally and became a complete hippie,
Right.
I felt like I'd sold out, for the sake of creativity, but I felt like I'd sold out to the man. So I was tremendously guilty. So I punished myself for a year and a half by, camping out in the desert, living in a tiny little soda cracker box mobile home, and driving a little Volkswagen. Then I got me a Dodge convertible, and that was rocking. And shit. And I had a pair of wives and 4 kids hanging, and a lot of other people too. And had a bunch of native friends living next door. Well, one native friend living next door, and a bunch of people coming around because of him. And life was just, I really punished myself tremendously. For about 1.5 2 years, I just partied. When I really needed money for beer or something, I'd sober up and go drive truck for my dad for a day or two and get a few bucks out of that, and then I'd run out and get some beer and some weed and go to partying again. I want some gas. You had to get around, and food, shit. But I could get a lot of that off of the farm when I was a young man. I was living in Utah still. Yeah, before I went back to trucking, this is what drove me back to trucking and got me out of the movie business entirely back then, because it was time to party. Yeah. And then when it was time to go back to work, God, somehow the business just didn't seem that appealing to me anymore. So, and I'd always loved trucks since I was a little kid. I was the wheelman. That's what I did. I drove things. That's what I did best. I drove my potty on the sidewalk when I was a baby. You know what I mean? I was born driving. Shifter in one hand and accelerator under my toe, man. I was riding high, baby,
Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
So that's what I was.
Well, I'm looking forward to this wheelman story big time.
Yeah, it ought to be good, yeah.
It's got that heart.
Thank you for helping me come up with that. That was just awesome.
When I just was listening, I threw it back at you. You caught it right there. It said, wow.
Yeah, that's it, man.
It's like you grabbed a lightning bug, bugs that light up. Boom.
That's what Daddy had been looking for, man. Shit, it hit the button right square on it. If that had been a missile button, we would have been at war, man.
I can pick away at an idea, or kind of hard to control, but there's usually some nice fallout of little gems, little kernels, little weird word combos that are unique. That it's there.
Yeah.
To the universe. So I just go into that space and say, universe, just let's cut loose. I'm the vehicle, and words is what I do, and I get pretty silly, and I put music, but I'm goofy enough. I'm a buffoon, but I'm not really a foolish person. I know what's valuable, and I can actually see a noble being developing. But then again, it's beyond that. It's just total indifference to this whole samsara charade of suffering and pity shows and poor me's, and I never got enough, and got a raw deal.
Well, we all got fucked, man. Every one of us. Right from the get-go. When they rang the bell, but the gates didn't open.
We got crap here today,
and we crashed into the starting gates, and it hurt like hell, We got dazed, man. We got dazed when we banged our heads on the starting gates, man.
Boy, that's for sure.
I tell you. So
I never saw these different layers, and now I see them. I say, my goodness, it's amazing how they all peel back, and there's a catharsis. As terrifying as it is to deconstruct, there is a level of just being comfortable with the way things are.
Well, every time you turn around in this life, there's another way to divide yourself from people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
we don't hang out with that kind, man. And you're Canadian. You're freaking weird, man. Your noodles frozen all winter long, man. How can you even walk and talk?
Yeah, I know.
And you Mexicans, you eat way too many beans down there, and all them hot chili peppers. God damn. I tell you, boys, you are so different than us, and we are so different than you,
I've grooved with everybody. I've been to Africa. I grew up with Africans in
Zimbabwe, and then I walked into the country with my camera, and I spent a whole day in Zambia. I got so much footage of these gorgeous falls, thousands of waterfalls. I couldn't believe it. It just will.
I seen a film of something like that on YouTube the other day. Is it a great big long horseshoe looking thing with just thousands and thousands of waterfalls, like the Amazon or something?
It's I don't think maybe it is horseshoe. It's really stretched out. It's long. It maybe comes
Yeah, it's a
somewhere.
long skinny horseshoe.
Right, but
Yeah.
It's not quite a mile. It's a kilometer and something, 1.1 kilometers or something. But you know what I did? Went down with my camera and I'd set up, and I do these wide pans, and then I'd very slowly fill the photo in, so slowly you can't even tell, and suddenly you're looking at these micro falls, and you totally lose how big we are as an entity, you know. And then I pan out again and slowly move and pan and go to another and do this slow for hours, and then move to possibly, I did this for 4 days, so I think I did 20 different locations in the 2 different countries, and it was beautiful stuff. I actually went up to the edge of these canyons where it drops off thousands of feet and held my camera like it could have cut loose. But down below, the image was this raging Zambezi River, white water, all crammed in a narrow channel, like deep, like a couple thousand feet.
Wow.
There's a rainbow there.
I'll bet, yeah.
Right at where this boiling is happening, and there's a wind that's carrying up a mist right up into the camera, so it's raining up. It's upside down with the Zambezi at the top, and my father was in the hospital at the United States from flying from Zimbabwe, Harare, that's where it was. Harare to London, London to New York, New York to Minneapolis, and then I got Minneapolis to San Diego. My dad's deathbed, so. But I said, Dad, I just came from Africa. You got to be cooking. And my dad loved cameras, and so it was like a great moment for us because he used the Kodak products, state of the art, right up with the family, and going to Iran, and he taught Iranians the agriculture, and they have the best land and water usage stuff in the world according to Glider. So they're the model. See, my dad was on the forefront there in 1950s, and I went there. So anyway, oddly enough, agriculture's been there from the beginning, and I've gone to the city and never really found a spot in the city, and never quite made that step back. So if I'm going to do algae with Robert, that's terrific.
I think what we're going to do is teach our brothers to love, and I think they're going to take righteous good care of us because we do. Once they really start to get it, shit,
Yeah, I like that.
When you want them to love, you got to be loving first, man.
Right, yeah.
It's not always easy. Sometimes you just want to kick ass or turn your back on them and never see them again, shit like that,
Right, yeah. You know it ain't
You feel
easy.
so separate, man.
Can we pull up that George Harrison? You know it ain't easy.
Oh, I bet we could someday.
God, that would be such a perfect song for a day like today. You know,
Oh,
it ain't
I
easy.
tell you, I think so.
Plus, we
Let's see
deserve
if we
it.
can find that son of a bitch, man.
Having gears has got to be a fever, 'cause men become addicted to the grind. It takes a special breed to be a truck driving man, and a steady hand to pull that load behind. Big wheels rolling, moving on. Big wheels rolling, got to keep them going. Big wheels rolling, moving on.